Welcome to Sunday Mornings with Twitchy Women, Sunday, November 15th, 2020. Today we are going to have two speakers who will be talking about PD generation, which is a project of the Parkinson's Foundation. Genetics has long been used to help uncover the biological causes of disease. For Parkinson's, much of the research has been focused on the male population, and little is known about whether there are genetic differences between women versus men with PD. There is no question that women are underrepresented among people with Parkinson's. To help us uncover important clues about the causes of Parkinson's and how gender may play a role, the Parkinson's Foundation launched the PD Generation Initiative to offer free genetic testing and counseling for people with Parkinson's. This initiative is focused on understanding the causes of Parkinson's by including a more representative population of people with Parkinson's and is offered through an at-home cheek swab kit or an in-clinic blood draw at a participating clinical site. Our first speaker today is Anna Nato, who is a graduate of Smith College. Anna is passionate about raising awareness and providing support for women with Parkinson's. She is a native of Southern California and currently works out of the Miami office for the Parkinson's Foundation. She earned her PhD in pharmacology from USC. Our second speaker, Denise Coley, is the founder of Enable Your Vision. Denise was diagnosed in 2018 and has focused on a multidisciplinary approach to her Parkinson's disease. She's interested in increasing Parkinson's awareness, education, and communications to underengaged and remote global communities. She was recently selected to join the Parkinson's Foundation People with Parkinson's Advisory Council in May 2019. She was also selected to participate in the Parkinson Foundation's Learning Institute in collaboration with University of Minnesota's Morris K. Udall Center for Parkinson's Disease Research in May of 2019. She was recently selected to participate on the World Parkinson Coalition Committee on Global Equity, Access and Inclusion Working Group in February 2020. Denise joined the PD Avengers this past July, and she became a member of the Parkinson's Foundation California Advisory Board in September. We will now join our program
that would be working
progress.
in Parkinson's, and now we have a handful and more are on the way, and that's because we know so much more thanks to genetics, and we need to contribute more and more towards that research so that we can accelerate these timelines forward to get us closer to that cure. So I want to give you an example that's completely unrelated to Parkinson's, but really highlights and brings home the message of why genetics is so important when we think about studying any disease and drug development. So on the left-hand side is a man named Jim Fix, who is a cross-country runner, and he died at the age of 52. And then on the right-hand side, we have Winston Churchill, who died at the age of 90. When you look at the genetics behind these two people, what sets apart Jim Fix compared to Winston Churchill, who lived a really nice long life, is that Jim Fix had a genetic mutation that caused him to accumulate cholesterol. And eventually he actually died of a heart attack while he was out running. But what we found was that thanks to genetics, and thanks to understanding just even one person's genetic background, scientists were able to identify a well-known drug that many of you might recognize as Lipitor. So this tells us that we can translate genetics directly from one individual to understand the biology of the disease and then develop drugs that can help the wider masses. And that's what we're trying to do with genetics and Parkinson's disease. And we're really getting close. So I'm very excited, particularly as a researcher. I think this is a space where we're making big strides that we're not seeing in other neurodegenerative diseases, such as Alzheimer's disease. So the Parkinson's Foundation launched a free genetic testing initiative called PD Generation. And what it is looking at 7 key Parkinson's related genes. You'll notice some of you may recognize this GBA gene because this is commonly included as part of the prenatal testing, especially if you are of Ashkenazi Jewish descent. This is a gene that's commonly passed down. So it is sometimes included in prenatal testing. LARC2 similarly is heavily found in the Ashkenazi Jewish population as well as North African Berbers. And then we have several of these other genes, again, that are highly cited in the scientific literature as key links to Parkinson's disease. So, why this initiative is so important is that number one, we're offering this through the foundation and not through a pharmaceutical company or a for profit such as 23andMe. And so, what that means is that we'll be able to share the research and the data and the outcomes of this with multiple companies. I showed you that slide earlier with a handful of pharmaceutical groups that are all working towards drugs that can help slow or stop the progression of Parkinson's. And so, by us, the foundation, starting this initiative, the hope is that we can share the data widely and really accelerate those timelines for clinical trials. We also emphasize the importance of genetic counseling because it's not just important to get tested, it's also important to talk about genetics in the context of you. Because again, every person is different, but also when we talk about genetics, we're talking about families. And genetic counseling is something that's really critical because what we do here is look at your family history, look at the context of you and the rest of your family members who might be affected based on your genetic test results. Many of the studies out there actually don't include genetic counseling, so this is a key component that the foundation wanted to include as part of this service so that we can help empower people with knowledge. This is the first study that's offered both in English as well as Spanish. So we're making a concerted effort to be able to reach out to non-English speakers. And this is a first of its kind study because we're offering telemedicine-based genetic testing, but it's clinical grade, meaning it's not just a 23andMe at-home test. It's actually a clinically prescribed test from a clinician. This is also important because the quality of this test is much higher because it needs to pass clinical grade testing. And it's also endorsed by Medicare. So this is something where the standards are much, much higher when you go to a clinical grade test compared to just um, a commercial test such as 23andMe. And importantly, insurance doesn't cover genetic testing most often. So sometimes we'll see insurance companies cover for things like LARC2 testing or GBA testing, but again, it's a very rare situation. And to give you a perspective of what the cost would look like if you were to pay out of pocket just to get testing of clinical grade for one gene, so let's say you got tested for GBA alone, that could be upwards of $1,000 to $3,000 just to get one gene tested at a clinical grade. And we're offering 7 of these genes and all at no cost. So, who is this for? This is for people with Parkinson's disease in the US for now, of up to 15,000 people. So, we're looking for people with a confirmed diagnosis. Again, this is no cost genetic testing and genetic counseling in both English or Spanish if that's preferred. And then we'll bank the residual DNA for future research. And this is also important because in the future, we're going to be continuously finding new information through research. So instead of calling you back into the clinic or being able to get another sample, we could put the extra DNA that we collect on the shelf and then retest it every time a new gene is discovered. And then we'll update you with the test results so that you're well informed of the latest research. When is this happening? We've already launched, and this is a 4-year-long initiative. And where can you participate? There are participating centers of excellences, which are clinical centers that are endorsed by the Parkinson's Foundation. But more importantly, we offer this from home through telemedicine. And I'll provide a little bit more details about that. But I also want to give Denise an opportunity to talk to you about her experience joining PD Generation through the telemedicine approach. So how do you get involved? We encourage everybody to visit our Parkinson.org website where you can find the PD Generation Initiative. So if you put in Parkinson.org/PD Generation, it'll take you to an enroll page. And there are three key steps that we would ask you to do. The first is to watch our 8-minute video. And this is what goes over the specifics of the testing, what's involved, what it tells you, and what it doesn't tell you, so that you're well informed. The second step is to review the informed consent. And this is a 12-page long document that we're going to ask you to sign during your appointment. So you don't have to sign it then and there. We will ask you to sign it live through e-consent. So you won't have to print it out and sign it by hand. We provide this information so that you know upfront what to expect. And then finally, when you click step 3, enroll now, it takes you to a very short questionnaire of 2 questions to confirm that you do indeed have Parkinson's disease. And then it takes you to a landing page with contact information of all of our enrolling sites. And what we ask you to do is to contact any one of our sites so that you can schedule either an in-person visit, and um, that is not as recommended at this stage because of the COVID situation. And so we really highlight the opportunity to complete the testing from home through telemed. So there are 3 key appointments associated with the PD generation study. The first is the consent visit. So we're going to go over that 12-page document with you live. That's about a 15-minute process. If you do it online, it'll be through Zoom, similar to how I'm talking to you today. If you do it in person, obviously that'll be done in clinic. And the second step is a main visit. So this could be a different day from your consent visit, depending on how much time the clinic has and how much time you have. But this is a 2-hour long visit. And what we will do here is do some clinical testing, take some clinical assessments, meet with a neurologist who's a movement disorder specialist. And then at the end of that, if you're participating from home, you will receive a cheek swab kit at your home before this main visit so that you can collect the sample during the appointment. And then what you'll do is pack up the cheek swabs back into the envelope that is prepaid by FedEx. You'll drop it off at the nearest FedEx location, and then about 6 weeks later, you'll receive your test results through a genetic counseling appointment. So that's the final step. It takes about 15 to 30 minutes, and typically it's a phone call, but again, you can do this by Zoom, invite your family members, and we do encourage that so that you'll be able to have your family members be part of that process. So PD Generation at Home is something that we just launched because of COVID. So this is something that the foundation thought was very important to ensure the safety of everybody. But more importantly, we want to be able to offer this testing widely, not just in certain clinic areas, but be able to offer people the testing in remote areas. And so I will let Denise talk about this a little bit later, so we can come back to this piece. But I wanted to give you a sense of where we are today with the PD Generation Initiative and where we're headed. So despite our COVID pause back in March, where we had to stop the study altogether, today we have almost 500 participants in this study, and you'll see the different centers that are participating with us. But again, you can do this study directly from home. So we'll contact any one of these centers so that you can participate through telemedicine. The stars represent clinical sites that are coming soon. And in fact, we just launched at University of Kansas, if anybody from that area is interested. So far, about half of our participants have been newly diagnosed within the past 3 years. I thought it was really interesting to also share that the average age, unsurprisingly, is 64 for our participants, but the age range varies very widely from age 30 up to age 88. So the youngest person in our study is 30 years old. Male-female breakdown, again, unsurprising, but we do have 43% female participants. So we're really trying to boost that number up so that we get equal representation among this cohort. So, who's participated so far? This is also interesting because pre COVID, we were only offering this testing in clinic, so in person. And we had 6 sites that were open at the time before COVID hit us. But interestingly enough, there were 21 states that were represented among our participants. So, people were driving, flying in to be able to receive the testing at our clinical sites. And so we're really happy to be able to offer the testing directly from home so that you don't have to leave and you don't have to come in person to get tested. So far, we've found 64 genetic mutation carriers, and every one of these colored people are important to research, important to drug development, because by understanding just even one person's genetics could help us develop better treatments, better drugs that can help all people with Parkinson's. So, every one of these people are really, really critical because we'll be able to understand the disease a little bit better. And particularly people who have these genetic forms of Parkinson's are going to accelerate us towards that cure. So, it's very exciting. I will also say that the research right now states that about 5 to 10% of people with Parkinson's carries a genetic form of the disease. Through PD generation, we've actually identified 17% of people who carry a genetic form of the disease. So we're already finding new research information that's updating in real time what we know about the disease. So we're very, very excited about that. So, what to expect when you participate via telemedicine? It will require a computer and webcam. So, those are things that are obvious. But the other component to think about too is family involvement. And so, we encourage people to consider having a loved one or a care partner assist and join people during the telemedicine visit, because we may ask for you to adjust the camera so that we can collect clinical information, particularly with the neurologist. And this is also important feedback that we got from some of our participants who said that the telemedicine visit does take about 2 hours of your time. So if you know that you need to take your medications ahead of time, or you need to have them handy during the visit, that's something that we encourage people to think ahead so that you'll be well prepared. And then the test results come about 6 weeks after you sign that 12-page consent form. So you'll be able to receive the test results, again, speaking to somebody live through a genetic counseling appointment to interpret and talk about your results. So this is really my last slide, is to recap how to participate in PD generation. Again, we encourage you to come to our website and it walks you through the entire process, but that's parkinson.org/PD generation. And our goal is to be able to reach 1,500 participants by May of next year. And if you have any questions or need help getting an appointment, please email me. And this is the email inbox is genetics@parkinson.org. You can call our helpline, which is a live helpline at 1-800-4PD-INFO. And again, this is the website. But if anybody has any questions about genetics or the science behind Parkinson's, this email is actually manned by me. So you will receive a response by me. And one last point to make is that because we've had such a large interest through telemedicine participation, there is a bit of a wait list right now at most of our sites. So again, we ask people to be patient. There's about a 1 to 2 month waiting period to be able to get the next available appointment, but we will get to you. This is really important for the foundation to make sure that every person is receiving access to this test. So with that said, I will pause so that I can let Denise Coley share her experience participating in the study.
Thank you very much, Sharon, and thank you so much for everyone for coming to listen about PD Gene. I'm really excited about this particular study. Can everybody hear me well? All right. With the announcement that Sharon made, you can see that there'll be many more webinars and many more telemedicine visits. And that's why I really like the PD Gene now. I participated in PD Gene once the announcement made that there was telemedicine. I was one of the first few to go through it. And I'd like to start off quickly with Parkinson's disease was discovered in 1817. That's a long time ago. And Parkinson's disease affects all genders, all ethnicities, and all ages. And I call this out because when we think about research, we're trying to look at all genders, all ethnicities, and all ages to help find a quality of life and possibly a cure. But with what was just said, Parkinson's disease did not pause because it was COVID-19. So we need to continue our research. We must continue fighting. We must look for better outcomes, and that must continue whether or not there is a COVID-19. And this is just a quick slide to talk about PD gene through the cheek swab. Is very easy, it's very quick, and it can be done in the convenience of your home. So graphically, I wanted to say why it's important to do PD gene and also why it's important for research. The benefits of telemedicine and PD gene is it's non-invasive, is access available for everybody. You can fit it into your schedule. The only caveat I will use is a lot of the sites are throughout the US. And with us being here in California, we have to really be mindful of time zones. So when you do get the opportunity to participate in telemedicine, make sure you ask what time and is it PST or something else so you can plan accordingly. And then when you have telemedicine, you avoid all your transportation issues, and that makes it so much more convenient to have it at your home. I used to lose 2 hours one way and then 2 hours another way to go to my appointments, and I don't miss that. But PDGing is really looking at addressing that unmet need. The genetic tests are often not affordable, as Anna has already said, and the good thing about PD gene is that you get genetic testing counseling. Whether or not you find out that you have the gene or not, they sit down and they talk to you about all the elements, what they found, and about the future might be more information about more genes, and your gene testing will help contribute toward that. And the other thing is that people with Parkinson's carry genetic changes important to the Parkinson-related genes. There are many of us who have family members, but that gene hasn't been found, or maybe it is environmental or industrial. But if everyone participates in PDG, we'll be able to find out much more information about genes, which will affect the treatment. It can be more targeted toward the genes. But more importantly, any research that you participate in is important. And so I encourage all Parkinson patients to participate because that will help for quality of care, the treatment, and the medicines. If we all participate and are in the research with the pharma companies, it really makes a big difference because typically the testing has been done on one segment of the population. And when it comes to women, it might be too much because typically it's been more male oriented. So if we as women with Parkinson's participate, we could have an impact on the quality of treatment and quality of life as well. So your impact is great. I hope you all remember that and invite all your friends who have Parkinson's to participate because PD gene will help with the gene therapy and genes that will help people in certain categories. But if you overall look at research, it's really important to participate in clinical trials. And the scientific research is now starting to say that it really is helping to improve and understand Parkinson. I read an article recently where they said Parkinson's may not be just one single disease, it could be many diseases. So they're looking at it from that aspect, which will really help us in terms of our quality of life and our longevity with the disease, and making sure that all medicine is effective across all populations, whether or not it is age, gender, race, ethnicity, or rural communities, because there are a lot of rural communities where we're really trying to get more Parkinson awareness. And I think that it will be another piece that will help us in terms of the treatments in the medical. And when we look at research, we have to stress the Parkinson awareness to the patients, but also to the care partners, the family, and the community. So with that, I'll end. And if you have any questions, you can let me know and I'll stop sharing. Any questions for Anna and
All right. Okay, we had a few questions in the chat, and we are not a big group this morning. So what I'm going to suggest is that if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand. If you click on participants at the bottom, you will see a, no, I don't even see it. There should be something to raise your hand, or just raise your hand like this, and we'll call on you.
Oh,
but
Sharon, the raise your hand is in the part that says participants. If you click on participants, and then it should show you at the bottom.
Yeah, it's not
a blue
showing it.
hand.
I'm not seeing it on mine, but if anybody else has it, you can do that. It will tell me at the top who's okay. I have a couple hands up. Okay, Susan Lehman. Before you go on, I just want to say one other thing. When I was in Israel a couple of years ago, I met with a doctor at the Soroka Hospital in Tel Aviv, which is a Parkinson's Foundation Center of Excellence. And they have a captive audience of, they have a captive group of Ashkenazi Jews, and they're doing a lot of research on the GBA mutations and how they can do some they're doing some work to develop drugs based on this to improve their lives. So we're moving forward on a lot of stuff because of finding out what these genes are and who the people are that are carrying them. And it's really exciting to see this happening. Okay, Susan Lehman.
First of all, I'm in the program. I've been in it for a while. I mean, I did it through Penn long before COVID. It was great. It was very interesting. The geneticist was fascinating. I'm one of the little sticks that you have up there that's a minority because I have several genes, but they think my Parkinson's, because of the way it's progressing and because of statistic, it's from the LRRK2 gene, because I have GBA and also Parkin. Yay. But my question is, the Denali study, do either of you ladies, oh, there you are, Anna. The Denali study for LRRK2 that I know was going gangbusters this time last year, actually started a year ago, last April. Do you know where they're at with the LRRK2 and
yes,
what's
so yes, well, first of all, Susan, thank you so much for that positive feedback.
Yeah, Tom Trepay and I are like this.
Oh, good.
He loves
I'm glad to hear that. Oh, he's your physician?
No, but I'm in his study and I'm on a board with him, but he always laughs. He says, your name's on my computer because you're like the blood bonanza.
Fantastic. Well, you know, again, I will say people like Susan alone can help us crack the code of Parkinson's. And because of people like Susan contributing to research, the drugs that get developed for these genetic forms of Parkinson's, the whole point of this is not to just help the people who have the genetic form of the disease. It's actually to crack the code of the biology behind the disease. So those same drugs that we are testing in the genetic space will eventually be used. And the whole point of this is to be able to help all people with Parkinson's, whether you have the genetic form or not. So I think that's a really critical thing to drive home. And Susan, thank you so much for your participation. The LRRK2 trial from Denali, as you said, has really gained a lot of acceleration. Biogen, who is another large pharmaceutical company, just invested in August $500 million upfront for the LRRK2 Denali trial. So what that means is that Biogen themselves also have a couple of LRRK2 assets that they're working on, but because they have partnered with Denali, this means that Biogen is actually accelerating forward to help Denali. So they've partnered together to be able to help boost that LRRK2 trial forward. So my understanding is that they finished their phase 1B study. They're moving into phase 2 quickly. The good news is that PD Generation is partnered with Biogen. And so any results, any data that come out of PD Generation will be shared with Biogen to help them accelerate their studies forward. But importantly too, if Biogen or Denali or any of these pharmaceutical companies need to identify mutation carriers, they can come through our study so that we can help identify people so much faster, because the faster you can get clinical trials, we've seen this with COVID. I think it's very timely, because the faster we do these clinical trials, the faster we can get drugs approved, and then the faster we can get these medications into the hands of all people with Parkinson's. So the point of PD Generation is to be able to not just help the research, but also help accelerate forward all of these exciting trials that are going on. So Susan, to answer your question, the Denali study is moving at light speed forward, but also because they are partnered with Biogen, I think the LRRK2 space is now really saturated with a lot of interesting research and pharma companies that are doubling down in this space. So I will kind of pause there and see if you have any other comments that you want to share.
Well,
I think
when you say light speed, so I was rejected for the study because I have 2 other genetic mutations. They pulled me at the last minute. It was a lot of fun, and I'm in another study now that I'll ask you about, actually. But I was curious, are they expanding, or are they just staying strictly to LRRK2 that has no other genetic mutations? Do you know about that yet? So I've been told
I don't.
stuff.
Yeah, so I don't know specifics about that and whether they're going to expand. My guess would be they want a very tight pool of people, so that if they see a signal at all, they want to be able to see a really clear signal. So even though you were rejected this round, inevitably they're going to move into a phase 3 study where they're going to have to expand out. So my guess would be that right now they'll probably stick with just their eligibility criteria of LRRK2 carriers, but I will also say a lot of these trials are paused because of COVID. Most of our pharma partners have completely stopped their clinical trial activities, recruitment, all of that. So this is where PD Generation is novel, because we are trailblazing this field of at-home testing, telemedicine, and really pushing the field forward to the point where Biogen has come to us and asked us for advice on how we can engage the Parkinson's community through these types of online platforms and support groups. And so they are really coming to us to help lead this space of telemedicine, which is now the new norm.
Well, my question
Okay.
with the LRRK2 was, I'm sorry, I'll wait till other people.
Yeah, no, we need to move on, Susan. Linda Berghoff, you had a question.
Yes, I participated, oh, yeah, I'm unmuted, okay. I participated in the 23andMe testing, and if I've done that already, is it going to be possible to enroll in the Parkinson's Foundation? Because it's much more extensive.
Absolutely. Linda, thank you for asking that question. So this is, again, open to all comers with Parkinson's, regardless of whether you've gotten tested through other means or not. So we encourage everyone to participate. It's free. So, again, it is a little bit more comprehensive than some of the other tests that are out there. You'll contribute towards research. So I think a lot of this will be open, and hopefully the telemedicine approach is appetizing enough for you to participate in this research study.
And one other question, in terms of LRRK2, yes. What are the basic tenets you're finding that you associate with the LRRK2 variation?
Sure. So it's interesting because we do see, so Columbia University is a big kind of leader in the space of LRRK2 research. Our study investigator that leads PD Generation is Roy Alcalay. He comes from Tel Aviv, and so he was one of the first pioneers in the space of LRRK2 as well as GBA. What we see from Columbia is people who have the LRRK2 mutation seem to live very long with Parkinson's, a long, long time. They don't seem to have as much motor complications, which is interesting. And so I think what we see so far is that people who live with LRRK2 can live a very long and healthy life, and they don't have as much motor complications, and the disease doesn't seem to move as quickly in terms of decline as some of the other forms of Parkinson's, particularly other genetics.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I have a question for you before we go on. I see Carol Westsail. You'll go next. my cousin, who's also on this call, his first cousin, should we say anything about if we both apply, and we live in different cities, so we're going to go to different centers, obviously. Should we say that we have a first cousin with this when we apply? Will that make a difference? Do you want to know that we are related so you can check us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sharon. It's very important. And in fact, as part of that 2-hour-long visit, we do take a full family history from everyone so that we understand who in your family has had Parkinson's, so that we can link that information to the genetics. So hopefully, you will both participate, and you can participate with the same clinic. So for example, many of you are in California, you can participate through telemedicine at Columbia University. And so that's the beauty of it, is that you could see Roy Alcalay, both of you can see him to participate. I think Denise went through Roy Alcalay at Columbia as well. Tom Tropea at UPenn is also taking telemedicine participants. So you can participate at any one of these sites, and you can participate together, which is great. So again, I encourage you to take a look at the website to see which site you would want to participate that's accepting telemedicine participants.
Thank
And
you.
then we apply together.
Yes, and if any of you have trouble getting an appointment because you've been waiting for a month or longer, please email me at genetics@parkinson.org, because I can expedite your appointment, and I can make you a priority participant and get you in sooner.
Okay, so we have Carol, and then we have Alice Lay. So Carol, go ahead. Alice, you need to unmute yourself, so you'll go next. All right, Carol Westsail.
I was wondering if you have a certain gene, can insurance companies drop you?
It's a great question. So there is actually a federal law called GINA, G-I-N-A, and they'll talk about this when you are walking through the consent form, which is that 12-page form that I talked to you about earlier that you'll sign off on. But that federal law, GINA, protects you from insurance companies being able to access any genetic information to discriminate or make changes to your policy. The only thing that we do say is that the law does not protect you from long-term health insurance. So, I think that's one component that we're still working on from an advocacy perspective. But medical insurance, they cannot access this information. In fact, this is a research study. So in the context of research, insurance companies, are not allowed to access that information unless you offer it to them. It's not going to go into your clinical record. It's not going to be noted, into your clinical record for insurance companies to be able to see.
Okay.
Also, I have a brother who has Parkinson's also. And I'm just wondering if if I get tested, can he be tested at the same time?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
what we were talking about. Okay, Alice, you're next.
Thank you. I'd like to know, can people with PSP be part of the study? PSP.
Yes. So the PSG, is that right? So that's the Parkinson Study Group. So this is actually a partnered study with the PSG, which is great because we tap into that network of clinicians. So we're about to launch out to all of our PSG clinicians to be able to offer the testing. So if you see a clinician who is a PSG member, they will soon be able to also offer the testing to you directly.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions for Darlene?
There was one more question,
Denise, yeah.
Anna. It said, do you pass the same gene down from parent to child?
That's a great question, and it actually depends on the gene. So in some cases, you need both copies from mom and from dad to be able to pass it down to the next generation. Other genes, it only takes one copy. So if you have it, it will be passed down. But the likelihood of that person, even if you're a carrier, so let's say you're a carrier of LRRK2, the likelihood of the lifetime risk of getting Parkinson's disease is about 20%. A lot of the factors that tip that is environmental factors. And so that relates to stress, it relates to other genes that might be interacting. And so I think that is a lifestyle component that could also tip that balance into Parkinson's. So right now, you know, we don't know enough, but for now we know that it's only about 20% increased chance of getting Parkinson's across the person's lifetime if they inherit a gene for
Okay,
LRRK2.
I saw it. All right, great. I see Darlene and Trish. Darlene, go ahead.
Maybe you explained this earlier, but what does heterozygous mean in a gene, in a GBA gene?
In a GBA gene, so it's a good question. So heterozygous means that you have one big copy and one small copy of the gene. And so let's say it's for GBA, if you have the big copy of the gene, that's enough to pass it down to the next generation. If you're homozygous, it means you either have the two big copies or two small copies of the gene. And so for GBA, if you're heterozygous, you know, having one copy of the big form of the gene is going to be enough to pass it down. Versus if you're homozygous, there's a 50% chance that you'll have two of the smaller letters, which means that that won't necessarily be passed down to the next generation, if that makes sense. So
Exactly.
having one, yeah.
Okay, Trish,
Thank
did
you.
you have a question? Wait a minute, Trish, we got to unmute you. Okay, nope, you muted yourself. There you go.
Hi, I have it's a Parkinson's disease. My dad had it too. Now, can my sister and brother who don't have any symptoms participate in this testing, or do they have to actually have the disease?
Yeah, thanks, Trish. Right now, unfortunately, because of funding, we're only able to offer it to the people who have a confirmed diagnosis of Parkinson's, but we have a large community of people who don't have Parkinson's, but you know, their parent had it and their parent is deceased, and they want to know if they carry a genetic form. And so I think this is the next step for us, is to be able to offer it soon. So we're working on a solution, but our priority right now is for people with the confirmed diagnosis.
Okay,
Thanks
you
for the question.
Any other questions? No? Oh, Susan. Susan, unmute yourself.
Just a follow up to the Denali, what I was going to say is what I read about the research so far, that even though they're only taking LRRK2, they're finding that their control group of non-LRRK2 people that they used are also seeing benefits from the medication. Is this true?
So the biology of LRRK2 is probably our strongest link to connect it to all people with Parkinson's. So that's likely true. I haven't read the study yet. So, you know, I think that's a component where LRRK2, GBA, these are two key genes where if there are medications that work for LRRK2 or GBA carriers, it's highly likely that it will work for all people with Parkinson's, especially if we're solving the biology of the disease. So I'm hoping that all of you understand the importance of that, because it's not just about helping people with the genetic mutations. It's the genetic mutation carriers that are going to help everyone with Parkinson's. So people like Susan, you know, that's going to make a huge difference. And because of you, we're leaping forward 10 years. And I think the one thing that I would want to leave everybody with is that if PD generation fails, and if nobody wants to participate in this study and we don't understand anything about genetics with Parkinson's, it sets us back more than 10 years of research and more than 10 years worth of pushing these clinical trials to the next stage. So it's really, really important for us to realize that we're at the brink of a very exciting moment in science, particularly for Parkinson's. We don't see this level of engagement, acceleration in scientific research in other neurodegenerative diseases. So now is the time, I think, as a researcher, I'm highly excited to see so much research coming through, and it's because we're starting to see how the genetics is uncovering the biology of the disease.
So I'd like to add on that it's really important because COVID is now forecast through 2021 that there are many telemedicine opportunities. And if you spread the word to your friends and women throughout the US and the world, remember it's a cheek swab. So it's very non-invasive. You're not giving any blood work or anything of that nature. So it's very easy to complete and you can do it at your convenience.
Okay. We have two more questions, and then we're going to wrap up. Kai Wang and then Eileen Corbett. Kai, you need to unmute yourself. Eileen, go ahead and unmute yourself too.
Should I go?
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Kai.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't tell you how excited I am at being able to participate in this. I do have Parkinson's in my family, you know, my grandmother, and I have 3 sons. And one of my concerns is that it could pass, if I do possess the gene, I'm very concerned that it could pass to them. And the other thing is, do you know, I also have Alzheimer's in my family. Will that be, would any of those genes also be tested for, or do you know of an Alzheimer's group that is doing the same thing?
So it's a great question. Right now, we're excluding any Alzheimer's genes actually on purpose because we want to see that clear signal on Parkinson's exclusively right now. So I think right now we're focusing on the 7 Parkinson's related genes. But with that said, if say you have BRCA or any other life-threatening disease, this is a place where ethically we are required to report that to you if you wish to receive that information. So it is ultimately up to you. But for those types of highly invasive genes that are, you know, have terminal effects, I think that's something that we would be able to report back, and that's only if you would like to receive that information. As it relates to your sons, I personally connect with you because I also had a grandmother with Parkinson's. You know, I don't have it today, I'm healthy, but I also have 2 sons. And so I worry about this as well. And the key thing is for you to receive the testing, but also have genetic counseling in the presence of your family members, because they can ask questions with the counselor, they can have an open discussion, and they can determine based on your family history and based on your genetics, whether or not it's even necessary for your sons to get tested or not. And it really depends on your family history. It's highly personalized to you and your genetics. And so the uniqueness of telemedicine too is that if your sons live far away or if they live in another state, they can join via Zoom during the counseling visit to listen in on that conversation. So if this were an in-clinic study, which it used to be pre-COVID, it would only be you and your loved one that comes with you to that appointment for the genetic counseling visit. Now with telemedicine, you can have family members from other countries, from other states, be able to join in on that conversation, ask their questions, and listen in. And it's also helpful to have one other person listening, so that if you miss something, they'll be able to help fill you in or remember that visit. But one other thing I forgot to mention is that after your genetic counseling visit, you'll receive a copy of the test result. You'll receive a personalized letter that comes from the genetic counselor that summarizes the discussion, saying, "Dear, Eileen, this is what we discussed during the genetic counseling visit. Here are the next steps. Here's places where you can find more information." So it's personalized to you. It's not just a thanks for participating type of letter.
Okay,
Thank you.
on November 29th, we're going to have fun. We are going to do, we're going to introduce our peer-to-peer program, which has already started on a trial basis. And then we're going to do our own version of speed dating, we're going to go into small breakout rooms, maybe 5 or 6 women in each room, and you will have a chance to talk to each other for 10 or 15 minutes. And when time's up, we will switch you into another room with 5 or 6 more people, so you get to know each other. And we will have some questions or games or something. We'll have a good time, just making new friends from all over the place. And whoops, I don't know what happened here where it says, oh, you're supposed to bring your leftover pie and a cup of coffee or tea and just have a good time. And then 2 weeks after that, it disappeared. Okay, well, that one we're going to be talking about our peer-to-peer support program, which I talked about 2 weeks ago. You'll learn more about it in 2 weeks. Sorry about that, ladies. And then we have Music Men's Minds on December 13th. And if I saw Diana Davido on the call, she's involved with this group in singing, I believe, doing a solo. I think I saw there was something with her. This is going to be fun. You're going to be able to sing, or if you play an instrument, you may want to bring your instrument along. I'll get more information from the organizers, but it's just going to be like a holiday party. We'll be able to sing and have fun and learn about the benefits of music for people with Parkinson's, not only listening to music, but making music, singing, and how all of those help you. And again, here's my contact information, and I will stay on until 11:30. So if anybody wants to stay on and chat with our speakers or just amongst yourselves, you have questions for me, for anybody, just stay on. We will be here till 11:30. And otherwise, we will see you in 2 weeks after Thanksgiving.